Thank you so much for staying tuned. Let's take a breather from the political scene. Let's go into COVID-19 and, of course, proposed reopening of airports in Nigeria. From the feelings we're getting right now, two airports have been given, how will I put it now, a kind of, a go-ahead, so to speak, been cleared to start operations, even in the midst of the spike in number of people living with coronavirus or infected persons. People are like wondering what in the world is really happening. Is it smart for airports to reopen? Is it smart for them to carry out their transaction? With me here in the studio is a legal practitioner and, of course, a human rights activist. Join me to welcome Barrister Robinson Imade. Barrister, welcome to TMI Sunday's edition.
Thank you,
I
Wilson.
appreciate your comment.
Thank you. Good morning, viewer.
Right. And I wonder why I keep pairing with Doc. You said it already. Join me to welcome a doctor, yes, that has to do with aviation. He's an airport doctor, so to speak, but though he's a medical doctor, but he's with the aviation industry. Join me to welcome Dr. Dominic Atibie. Doc, welcome to TMI.
Thank
so
you
this edition.
Much. Thank you.
All right. Before we go into the medical angle, I really want to hear from you as a legal practitioner, Barrister Robinson Imade. What do you feel about the proposed reopening of these airports?
Well, my position has always been and is still anchored on the fact that we cannot close down our existence for coronavirus. I think the airports should be reopened. Our motor parks are all reopened. Those are the two main means of transportation that we have in Nigeria. But in doing this, we must be very careful. Just last week here, it was said that international airports will be reopened on October 15th. Luckily, the Secretary to Governor of the Federation, Boss Mustafa himself, who doubles as the chairman of Presidential Task Force, have said that it's fake news, and that the practitioners, the people in the aviation industry, will sit down, look at these things, along with him in the COVID-19 committee, to decide on a suitable date. And he believes that it could be earlier than October 15th. I'm more worried about reopening the international airports, in spite of the fact that our economy is in trouble with the closure. Don't forget that the international airports were closed in March only because the cases of coronavirus moved from 12 to 22. Now you know the thousands that we have. But as for the local airports, it will amount to not allowing people move. The economy really blows on if we decide to still close the airports. Because all the motor parks are closed. The interstate lockdown is being moved. And so there's nothing, in my opinion, that should prevent us from opening the airports, especially if we take heed to the COVID-19 protocols. Keep social distancing, minimize the number of people that will be in an aircraft, wear your mask, and the likes. If that is done, just like we have opened the land border, the interstate lockdown, the airports should be opened. But for international airports, we should be a little bit more careful, because there are countries that are even worse off than Nigeria as far as the COVID-19 pandemic is concerned. If we are opening, we should open in phases, just as it's been done for the local airports, so that certain countries will not have free access, citizens of such countries will not have free access to Nigeria, and vice versa. But in all, I think that it is time that we begin to open economy so as not to have worse pandemic. Because when economic pandemic, so to speak, I think that the time is right for us to open our local airports, and we should selectively open the international routes.
Okay. Well, as a medical practitioner, you are with the aviation industry. I believe that you know the protocols on the ground, but some Nigerians are still apprehensive, knowing fully well that we have above 30,000 cases of infected persons in Nigeria. When we talk about COVID-19 and the number is still increasing, do you think it's a smart idea, Dr. Dominic?
Yes. We have said here a couple of times that reopening the economy generally is key to existence, and because we must live, corona will come and go someday. Even if it doesn't go, we'll begin to live with it like we're living with malaria and other communicable diseases in this part of the world. There could be no better time to reopen the airports, that is the airspace, than this period. And in the wisdom of the NCAA, which is a Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority, under the head, the rulership of Captain Musa Nuhu, has decided, together with his colleague in FAN, that is the MD FAN, which is Captain Rabiu Yadudu, to reopen the airport in this phase. Of course, this is because this is following a joint discussion with the Minister of Aviation and Ministry of Health vis-a-vis the challenges that there is to international flights. And because we know both international and domestic flights, the airport actually happens to be one of the routes, the nidus for communication and transmission of foreign infections or travelers' disease, as it were. And we know the history of COVID-19 in the world, where it came from and how we've gotten the figures we are in right now. A lot has been actually put in place to ensure that phasal reopening of domestic airports is key. You know, for all that it's worth, we know how dangerous our roads are. A lot of persons cannot even guarantee traveling by road again from maybe the northern side of the country to the western side, and vice versa, east, south, and all that. Some persons are already, some people already have phobia for roads, and it is in that light that domestic airports should be reopened. And of course, not just to go into a rush in opening the domestic airports, but to follow guidelines, COVID-19 guidelines, and guidelines that have been stated by the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority, together with public health corridors, looking at the things to do. You will agree with me that of course, the reopening started sometimes around 21st of last month, 21st of June, when the country had experienced 3 months of complete lockdown. Yeah. I'll probably like to start by giving a little history about airports generally in Nigeria, you know. And generally we have about 31 airports, and 26 of these airports are under the rulership of Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria, FAN, for which 23 are domestic airports. And then, of course, we have international airports here, we have private airports, we have military airports. Now, for these domestic airports, initially as at 21st of June, 5 of these airports were said to be reopened because they followed all the guidelines. They maintained social distancing on the tires, the steps where the counters where clients and passengers come in to get have been shielded by a shield. They've provided rooms for hand washing facilities and hand sanitizer at almost every 3 meters away, so that people will use it as frequent as possible, and even on the decks, and so many other facilities that are key that have been put to place. Now, a dry run actually came up sometime around 20th of June, to see from the basically took 2 international airports, the domestic terminal of Lagos, Murtala Mohammed Airport in Lagos, and then Nnamdi Azikiwe Airport in Abuja to do this, and then all the things that were put in place were there. The minister actually rightly said that the aircraft have been coined, that is the sitting pattern has been coined to such a way that when international flight resumes, there's this adjustable, reversible chair.
Okay, Doc. Okay, before you go into the history, I know that this was still what Nigerians were worried about. And they have the opinion that this corona that we are suffering from right now came in via our airports, through flights and all that. I'll have to pause here later. You're going to react to that. But you, Barrister, take it off from there. With the fear that the pandemic gained entrance into Nigeria via airports, do you think it's wise for us to go ahead with this? Why can't we just wait until, globally speaking, we have this on the wraps?
I think we are waiting. Nigeria is waiting. When FAN, NCA, or whoever brought out a circular that international airports will be reopened on October 15th, I've told you that Boss Mustafa himself said no, I should be taken as fake news. And that when the time is right, it will be decided. And of course, remember that when the local airports were reopened, started to be reopened in phases, it was the COVID-19 managers that advised. They are still in a position to advising whether the international airports will reopen. For a long time, I agree with Trump that coronavirus should be called China virus. So it is a public domain that it came from China. It has spread across the globe. It is not to say that if the airports are open, we all will have coronavirus and die. No. The position I took just now, and I still maintain, is that international airports should be open in phases. We should look around. The EU countries have decided, just recently, they also reopened their link with 19 other countries. We can do likewise. Nigeria is taking its time if what Boss Mustafa says is what is, and it could also be reopened in phases. But I am saying that the local airports all should be given matching orders to provide the safety nets so that the economy in the country can boom again. I tell you, there's a country, I can't remember now, that said, look, we're going to pay our citizens who intend to travel to stay around and spend their money here in the interest of the economy. Nigeria must know that after coronavirus, we have to survive. Many Nigerians are not surviving now. They are just living, just existing. The truth is, coronavirus is dealing its blow on us, and the economy is becoming a serious problem. So whereas the local airports should be reopened, taking into cognizance the fact that they have to meet the coronavirus protocol demands, I also think that the international airports, because of the huge economic benefit, should be open in phases. We should look around the world and see countries that we have good bilateral relationship with, that are not so terrible with the pandemic, and allow movement between us. I'll tell you, just now, many Nigerians traveling abroad now go through the Benin Republic or the Equatorial Guinea, and they are making so much money. Even when Benin said, oh, we're going to stop it, they looked at the economic benefit and allowed it again. Many Nigerians go through the very rough road between here and Cotonou to go fly abroad to do their businesses or to go to their respective places, and they go through the waters to Equatorial Guinea to fly. Why are we unleashing such hardship on our people? I think that coronavirus or no coronavirus, Nigeria can systematically and in phases reopen international flights or air routes. We must be selective, the country we do that with just now.
Okay, over to you, Doc. Like what I said before, though he's still of the opinion that we should open in phases, this is started from the airports, from the borders. People coming in and stuff like that. Are the airports really set? What facilities are on the ground to make sure that people are screened effectively and efficiently to prevent the spread of COVID-19? Do we have it in our airports?
Yeah, I can tell you categorically that the airports are ready.
Good.
They are really, really ready. Now, the very few airports that are not ready, which I can't mention their names out now, are those that still needed to put one or two safety precautionary measures in the follow of the COVID-19 rules. because you know, during the course of last week, there was this rigorous NCAA screening, you know, accreditation of certain airports, for which Benin Airport and the airport in Jos were the two that had scaled through, and flight operations will likely resume from tomorrow because of those, all the criteria that they were supposed to meet. At least they've met it to say maybe 98%, 95%. But that's a serious distinction. I mean, if your child goes to school and is picking up 95, 98, I mean, that's some good distinction. Now, like we said, yes, these measures were actually looked at particularly following based on public health corridors. We know that this disease is actually an internationally driven or internationally traveled disease. It was gotten from China, like we've established, and then we know that Nigerians generally are very traveled. Now we need to put measures in place to ensure these things worked. Now those measures are physical distancing. When you go to the airports that have been approved, you check them very clearly. You see very good seating patterns where a particular seat is cancelled, and then for the other two opposite seats to be that is physical. Now, except for family, maybe yourself, your wife, and the child or so, you're able to sit in the same space. Now, unlike the way the concourse hall, that is the hall where everybody, the departures go in to stay, is usually filled. At this point now, it has been sectioned such that only maybe 5 or so persons can enter the hall at a particular time. There's a canopy that has been kept somewhere where every other person that intends to fly will be there. And the flights have been restructured such that no two aircrafts will be on ground at the same time. One after the other, they're all maintaining social distancing. In fact, if you even check at the car park areas are also maintaining social distancing. People sit in sitting positions and maintaining social distancing. Now, before you enter into the airport, there's a place in the airport there where you go for COVID-19 screening. Basically, check your temperature. If you have any query, reason why you shouldn't board that flight, the Port Health Services, including the Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria Medical Department, that is the medics, will now tell you, Mr. A, Mr. B, can you kindly shift to this angle, let the doctor see you properly, and then do the needful. If you need to be quarantined, you'll be quarantined. If you need to move to a particular location, you'll be moved. And that is...
People do like, Doc, we are talking as if we are in America. You do this, you do that. Don't forget this is Nigeria. Don't forget the crowd. Don't forget the pressure on our airports.
I'm using Benin airports categorically as a yardstick. Now, these were the measures that were put in place to ensure this whole delay. It took almost 4 months for reopening. Okay. When you start coming now, you will see that this is what's obtainable. Okay. The same thing obtainable, the same thing that I'm speaking here is what is obtainable in Abuja, in all the international airports, in the domestic terminals. This is what it is.
All right, now we have 1 minute each to summarize our point, because it's almost time for us to go on a break for a very important segment of this show. Well, Barrister, 1 minute, do you think that since the airports are being given the green light to go ahead, do you think that this should be extended to schools also? Both of you are going to react to it in your closing remark. 1 minute each.
My position has always been, let the economy be reopened. Talking about closure of airports, don't forget that Nigeria even said, except for diplomatic matters and essential flights. Many people flew into Edo State, into Benin City yesterday. It is skewed against the common people, just like we see in almost all spheres of our existence. Talking about whether the schools should be reopened, I have always advocated that. Let the schools be reopened. Let the local airports all be reopened. We are talking about safety measures here, there, and everywhere at the airports. What about our local parks? You only find one small bucket and soap to wash your hands, and social distances are not made. Is coronavirus airborne alone? Is it through flight alone that it can spread? It spreads across the borders. The borders are reopened. The interstate boundaries are reopened. The airport should be reopened. Schools should be reopened. All the measures necessary should be put in place so that our children, the children of the poor, we also benefit what the children of the rich are getting at the private level.
Thank you so much, Barrister. Doctor, 1 minute to summarize.
Yes, I'll just take from the last part of what he said. You know, I agree to him to a very significant extent. Usually it appears towards the end of the show, we're always in consonance with Barrister. Now, for the reopening of schools, yes, I've always been an advocate of sometimes in August. August is here. So the school should be reopened. We've learned our lessons. What are the measures we're supposed to put in place? I've spoken here sometime about use of automated, auto-mechanical hand-washing machines. I've also spoken here that there's a need for airport schools that can afford to get decontamination chambers, which is what is functional in our domestic and international airports. So schools should reopen, airports should reopen. Right. It is already August, and August it is.
Thank you. Thank you so much, gentlemen. I appreciate a wonderful analysis. Well, you've heard them. They are saying, yes, it should be reopened. Let's see what will happen next. We want to go on a break. We'll be right back.